Well, Anthony Albanese has concluded a successful trip to the US where he was able to secure a critical minerals deal with Donald Trump. But on his last day in Washington, D.C., he has defended the ambassador, Kevin Rudd, after the US president said he didn't like him during yesterday's White House meeting. Our political editor, Andrew Clennell, filed this report.
Anthony Albanese has wrapped up a successful mission in terms of a visit to the White House to meet President Donald Trump. He penned a critical minerals deal with the US and he got an assurance the AUKUS nuclear submarines agreement is going ahead, and he had warm personal time with the US president. In fact, the Prime Minister, speaking at a BHP 140th anniversary lunch at the Australian Embassy, said the Australia-US relationship had gone up a notch because of this visit.
Yesterday can be marked as a day where Australia and the United States in our relationship went up a further notch. The President and my engagement seemed warm. You bet it was, because we like each other.
The Prime Minister found himself defending his ambassador, Kevin Rudd, after Mr Rudd's exchange with the US President in the Cabinet room yesterday, and he made it clear that Kevin Rudd's term is until 2027, and it appears he'll stay in the job till then, despite what he said about Donald Trump 5 years ago.
To quote President Trump, all is forgiven. And, you know, he said that while you were exiting the room.
Prime Minister, Mr Rudd, by March next year will have served 3 years in the job. Will he continue in the job as ambassador past that point?
Yeah, he's been appointed for 4 years.
The Prime Minister doubled down in two speeches, one to congressmen and another to the BHP audience in the embassy, saying Kevin Rudd was the hardest working person he knew.
As I said to President Trump yesterday, it says something about the importance that we place in the relationship with the United States, that a former Prime Minister is our ambassador here. And I thank you today very much publicly for the success of this visit. Is down to your hard work.
The Trump-Rudd stoush and apology from Kevin Rudd to Donald Trump even got a mention from Congressman Michael McCall, who is the co-chair of the Friends of Australia caucus. He had a bit of a joke about it when Anthony Albanese and Kevin Rudd met with him this morning.
What a very successful meeting in the White House yesterday. I really commend you, and to the ambassador, I'm glad you're still gainfully employed.
The Prime Minister confirmed what officials said in the White House yesterday, that there were going to be improvements to the AUKUS nuclear submarines agreement, but he wouldn't flag what these changes were, except to say the agreement was very much secure, as President Donald Trump indicated. Anthony Albanese now returns to Australia, but he won't be there for long. Come the weekend, he's attending the APEC and ASEAN summits in Asia, where again he might make contact with President Donald Trump, as well as Chinese President Xi. Andrew Clennell, Sky News, Washington, D.C.
And with more analysis, now joining us live is former Trump trade advisor Kellyanne Shaw. Thanks so much for your time. How would you characterise those talks? Were they the raging success the government has been hailing?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Well, I think this was always going to go relatively well, just given the relationship that Australia and the United States have, the fact that they see eye to eye on so many issues, from national security to geopolitics. And Australia has been a really important partner for the United States. But what was interesting about this, and I spent a lot of time with the president and world leaders back in the first Trump administration, is that I saw real genuine chemistry there. And the president is a very relational person. I thought this meeting could not have gone better, at least from the parts that we saw publicly.
You saw there the fallout from an awkward moment between President Trump and the Australian ambassador, Kevin Rudd. We're being told that all is forgiven. From your experience, is Donald Trump the sort of person that does forgive and forget?
I would say absolutely. I mean, I think they tried to make it more of a light moment versus digging in. And of course, you never want something like that to necessarily play out in front of two world leaders. But at the same time, I watched the president evolve many of his relationships over time with different world leaders and others who he interacted with. I do think he is forgiving for those sorts of things. And I have every confidence that the Australian ambassador is going to build a more constructive relationship with the administration.
Could Australia have pushed harder, do you think, though, on some of the sore points when it comes to things like reducing aluminium tariffs and staring down potential pharmaceutical tariffs too?
Yeah, and here's sort of an interesting dynamic between the first administration versus the second administration. We are seeing far less flexibility from the president when it comes to these steel and aluminum tariffs. There have been no countries so far that have managed to get out from under them. And there are commitments with the EU and the UK to try to reduce those tariffs further, but we haven't actually seen a successful run at getting tariff-free treatment like Australia had during the first administration. I do think discussions around pharmaceuticals and semiconductors and some of these other products will continue to evolve once we see the final measure. But the meeting on Monday was really about shoring up the critical supply chain, making sure that the AUKUS agreement was intact, and really addressing some of these national security challenges. I think although trade for sure came up, it wasn't really the focus of the trip, and there'll be many other opportunities to continue to discuss this.
How do you see that critical minerals deal fitting into the broader context as we all look forward to seeing the China-US leaders' talks coming up soon?
Yeah, I want to underscore just how important this is. And it is hard to overstate the level of concern in Washington right now over Chinese rare earth export controls and the aggressive steps that they are taking to maintain their chokehold over the global technology supply chain. And Australia is one of the few partners that the United States has that processing capability. And so to really double down on that partnership, to solidify it, we're going to start to see the world fracture when it comes to critical mineral and rare earth supply chains. And I think Australia was an important domino in making that happen. So I think that is the most important outcome of this deal. I think that relationship will continue to develop and evolve. But this is really a turning point for the allies and the global markets when it comes to these products.
Kellyanne Shaw, really appreciate your insights. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.